Hey, I'm Abby and welcome back to the Life Work Balance YouTube channel. So I recently posted a video about one-way pre-recorded video interviews and gave you a couple of tips on how you can have an effective pre-recorded interview. Now those pre-recorded interviews are usually kind of a screening process that most candidates go through if they meet minimum qualifications. If you're going to continue having virtual interviews, the next step would be a live virtual interview. And that's what this video is all about. Before we jump into that, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you're looking forward to learning about those tips on how you can have an effective live virtual interview. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life work balance advice delivered directly to you every Sunday. So, like I mentioned, I just recently posted a video about those one-way pre-recorded video interviews that are becoming pretty popular as a screening tool for hiring managers and organizations. If that pre-recorded interview or one-way interview is going to be used, most candidates who meet minimum qualifications will be going through that process. Once you've effectively made it through that first step of the screening process, you will likely then have a virtual live interview with one or more people. Now, this is a critical piece of the interview process and is becoming much more popular, especially as people are working in remote jobs, maybe working nationally or internationally, and are not necessarily needing to commute to and from the office. So virtual interviews are very, very popular. So I've got 4 specific tips for you on how you can have a very effective virtual live interview. Now, this applies to any type of live interview that you might have that is with one or more people. The first is technology. Your technology will make or break your interview. If you have an unreliable device where your camera doesn't work or your audio is choppy and it goes in and out, that can really impact the impression that you're able to give the interviewers during this process. So you want to make sure that you have high quality audio, both streaming to the people on the other end and streaming through to you. So this means that you might have to use an external microphone to really elevate your level of audio. If you don't have an external microphone, then maybe you'll be using high quality headphones that have an external microphone connected to them. You may also find that your integrated microphone in your device is sufficient. However, you need to be aware of whatever background noises might be present during your interview that could pull the audio away from you or pull the interviewer's attention away from you. You'll also want to make sure that you can hear them effectively. So if for some reason your speakers on your computer or your phone or whatever device you're using are not able to go up high enough or kind of create a weird feedback, again, you may need to use headphones or have external speakers that can help improve how you're able to hear the interviewers on the other end. As this is a virtual interview, having a high quality camera is also really important. So if you're going to be doing a virtual interview, assume that your camera will be on. Most devices these days, whether it's your phone or your laptop, have a pretty high quality camera built into the system. However, if you're using a device that doesn't have a built-in camera, you will want to purchase an external camera where you're able to actually be on camera during your interview. Now, one of the things that can actually be something we don't really think about that can impact our audio and our video quality is our internet speed. So if you're doing this video interview and you're at home and your internet speed is slow, having your camera on and streaming through a video interview might not work as well as you would expect. So it may be to your benefit to reserve a room at one of your local libraries where you're able to have access to higher speed internet and a very quiet environment where you're able to have no distractions in the background, have clear audio streaming through, and your background behind you is hopefully not too distracting either. We'll talk about that a little bit later though. You will want to test your technology ahead of time. So whether this is through Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or another platform, there's likely a way that you can sign up with a free account and test the day before or half an hour to an hour before your actual interview. You'll want to be able to log in, test to make sure that your equipment is working properly. You may have to have someone else join with you so that you can test it with them. You'll want to make sure that you test the environment before you actually jump onto the interview for the very first time. My second tip is around lighting and background. So let's touch on background first. If you're going to be at home, you'll want to make sure that your background is not distracting. Do not do a virtual interview in your bedroom where you can see piles of laundry, books, and disarray and disorganization. You want to be somewhere where you have a very clean wall behind you, maybe some nice imagery, but you don't want something that's too distracting. You can use virtual backgrounds. Virtual backgrounds can help blur or cover those distracting backgrounds, but just know that virtual backgrounds can sometimes backfire because of the things that they are cutting out or that they're showing during your actual interview. So for example, if you are using a virtual background and there's someone walking behind you, it's very possible that they will suddenly appear in the video and then disappear. If you are using a virtual background or a blurred background and you have long hair or long earrings or you're wearing green of some sort, the virtual background might blur those out and then suddenly make them reappear. Again, that blurring and re-adding and disappearing can be really visually distracting. So my recommendation is that you find a place where you have a background that is clean, that is simple, that is not distracting, and you won't have to use a virtual background or a blurred background. Now, lighting is also a part of this. You do not want to sit with light behind you. You want light in front of you so that the shadows don't appear on your face. Ideally, you will sit with a window or a light in front of you. Maybe you take a lamp and you can take the lampshade off and you put that right in front of you. But you want to do your best to remove any shadows from your face so that you are illuminated rather than the illumination coming from behind you. Do not sit with a window behind you. It will create shadows. Your camera will focus on the light coming from that window and it will put you in the dark. My third tip is around your body language and your overall style. Imagine you were actually in the room with these interviewers. You would be nodding at them, you would be making eye contact with them, you would be smiling at them. You want to engage in those same types of body language behaviors with your video interview. It's a lot harder to do so, and it's a lot easier to get distracted and forget that you're not engaging in some of those body language things, but it's really important for the actual interview process. So when it comes to eye contact, you'll want to look directly at your camera. So if this is on your phone or if this is on your computer, use a sticky note or something to remind you to look at the camera rather than at the one image in the bottom corner. You don't have to make uncomfortable eye contact with the camera the entire time. If I were just staring at this camera the entire time that I was talking to you, you'd probably start to feel a little bit uncomfortable. But having slow blinks, slowly looking away, maybe looking down to take some notes, all of those are very normal things that would happen during an in-person interview. So you're okay to engage in those types of behaviors during your virtual interview as well. But you do want to just remember to look directly at the camera to make that connection with the person on the other end. You also want to remember to smile and engage with the camera as if it were a human, if it were another person. You want your energy levels to be up. You don't want them to be too crazy, like you've drank 5 cups of coffee in the last 5 minutes and you're bouncing off the walls, but you do want it to be a comfortable, friendly, positive experience, not only for you, but also for the people on the other end. Try not to fidget too much when it comes to your virtual interview, especially if you're using headphones that are wired. It's easy to fidget with the wires and have some distracting background noise. Just the visual of fidgeting with your microphone wires can be really distracting. If you're wearing earrings or a necklace or a tie that's getting in the way, don't mess with that because it will really draw the attention away from you and what you're saying to your fidgeting behaviors. And ideally, you will be professionally dressed. Now, at the very beginning of the pandemic, when video interviews kind of were on the rise, there were jokes or things that would happen where people would just wear something professional on the top, and then they might not be wearing anything other than their underwear on the bottom. And they might stand up and everyone who's on the call sees that they are only halfway dressed. So dress fully, and then also dress in a professional manner. So what does this mean? Well, I would recommend dressing one level above the expected everyday attire for this position. So if you're interviewing for a job that expects you to wear a t-shirt and jeans, then maybe wearing a nice pair of jeans and a polo shirt or a nice button-up blouse is sufficient. If you're going to be working in an office where the attire is more business casual, dressing business casual is sufficient. I also recommend keeping in mind the colors and the patterns that you're wearing. If you are lighter skinned, wearing darker solid colors is likely better. If you have darker skin or a darker complexion, wearing lighter colors will be better. Creating some contrast is helpful. When it comes to patterns, I actually recommend wearing solids rather than patterns because the patterns can get busy, and if you're using a virtual background or a blurred background, could even blur in or blend in with that virtual background. My fourth and final tip is about overall interview preparation. Now, I offer interview strategy sessions that you can schedule with me one-on-one so that it can be highly personalized to the interview that you've got coming up. But if you don't have time for that, maybe your interview is tomorrow and you really just need these quick tips, here's what I recommend. First, review very common interview questions. They are likely going to be behavioral or situational questions and technical questions. I've got a video that I recently released about how you can use ChatGPT to give you some ideas on questions that could be asked during the interview process, so you can use that as a resource. Or I have a list of 52 behavioral-based interview questions that you can download for free from my website. I've linked to that in the description box below. You'll also want to review the job posting that you applied to or the job description that you have to try to decipher what types of technical questions could be asked. So those technical questions are questions that are specific to the job that you would be doing. So maybe a software-based question or a programming question. Maybe if you're going into a project management role, a question specifically about project management techniques or things that have worked well for you when it comes to managing projects as a whole. So prepare your answers to very common interview questions. If you do have time to schedule a session with me, I offer 2 different types of interview preparation sessions. I have an interview strategy session and a mock interview session. Both of these can be helpful. However, most of the people that I work with choose the interview strategy session. This is where we discuss your experience, the job that you're applying to, questions you can likely expect during this process, and then I also can give you feedback on your lighting, your audio, your video, those types of technical things that can really make or break your interview. I recommend, if you haven't already watched them, I've got several videos on the different types of questions you should ask at the end of an interview. So definitely be prepared to ask questions at the end. I've got several videos on common interview questions. So these are questions you can expect during the interview process, as well as ways that I might recommend you answer common interview questions. And then I've also got a whole playlist on how to introduce yourself during an interview. The introduction that you have, whether it's in person or via video, really sets the tone for your interview as a whole. So having a strong, positive introduction is to your benefit. So keep those 4 things in mind when it comes to your video interview: technology, lighting and background, your body language and style, and then general interview preparation. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you have any additional questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas, or your own experience that you would like to share with others, throw it in the comments box below. I love receiving comments. I do my best to try to respond to each comment, but even if I'm not able to get back to you, you sharing your experience will be helpful to other people who are also watching these videos. So please, if you have any feedback, if you have any thoughts or ideas or your own experiences to share, throw them in the comments box below. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can continue to receive life-work balance advice delivered directly to you every Sunday. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.